Memos. How are they different from email and from letters? It turns out that some situations give memos a rhetorical advantage. In our age of electronic communication, fewer business professionals write or even read printed memos, yet memos remain a part of many organizational cultures. President John F. Kennedy saw the value of memos in his day. Arthur Schlesinger, who served as court historian for JFK, quoted him as saying, "I have discovered finally that the best way to deal with state is to send over memos. They can forget phone conversations, but a memorandum is something which, by their system, has to be answered." Of course, with this statement, JFK highlighted the importance of the printed word for getting things done. That's true for email and letters as well, but his statement also demonstrates the influence that memos have traditionally had. In this lesson, we're going to focus on what distinguishes a memo. We're going to see ways that memos differ from email and from letters. Now, I recognize that some use the term memo loosely. For example, someone might refer to an email sent from the company president to the entire organization and say to a colleague, "Have you read the memo from the CEO?" For the purposes of this lesson, I am referring to a memo as printed communication rather than as electronic mail. After all, in the scenario that I just described, most people would probably say, "Have you read the email from the CEO?" rather than, "Have you read the memo from the CEO?" Maybe you just realized that I have given you the first distinction between memos and email. Memos are printed communication, email is electronic communication. But what is the function of printed communication? Most communication is electronic, so printed communication may stand out as unusual or having a different purpose than most email. As a result, a memo differs from an email in the level of formality and gravity. If you have something important to communicate in writing and you want to signal to your audience that you really want this message to be taken seriously, you can send a memo. Now, you might think to yourself that you need all of your messages to be taken seriously. Did you ever have a teacher who said, "If you highlight everything in your textbook, then you haven't highlighted anything"? That's true for sending memos as well. If you send all of your written communication as memos, each of your memos will be treated as a routine. In addition, you're probably wasting a lot of paper and failing to take advantage of the efficiency of email. Save the medium of memos for especially important information. Another distinction from email deals with salutations and closings. I realize that you may drop greetings and closings from most of your emails, but the general standard for memos is to omit them entirely. So memos do have some important differences from email. Now, you may be thinking, if memos are printed communication, what is the difference between them and letters? That's a good question. They differ in both audience and format. Memos are sent within an organization. Letters are sent outside the organization. Of course, there are some exceptions. Sometimes you receive a letter from your organization because it deals with you personally rather than with your role in the organization. For example, if you receive printed communication from your organization's Human Resources Department, you're probably receiving a letter instead of a memo. The point is that the printed communication is for you. It is something for you to take home. In such a case, the printed communication is not considered workplace property. But the general rule for printed communication is that you send memos to people within your organization and letters to people outside your organization. Another distinction between letters and memos is related to a distinction between email and memos. Letters almost always include a greeting and a closing. Again, memos do not. In addition, memos do not include addresses in the heading, whereas most letters do. Also, a memo includes a subject line. Most letters do not. Memos may also differ from letters in length. I cover that possibility in my lesson on writing and formatting powerful memos, which would be a good lesson to view next. As you apply the principles from this lesson, however, you will be able to analyze the situation to see whether selecting the memo rather than email or a letter can serve you and your audience better.